Well, welcome back. Hope you had a good time with group coaching with JD and Hogue, but now we've got the knowledgeable, wonderful, and stupendous Deeyana. Whoa. Market Stalking with Deeyana, and of course we got Coach Robert. And Deeyana, how are you today?
I'm very well. Slightly tired because I did travel today, so I had an early flight from London to Belgrade, where I'm currently located. So this is where my mom lives. So yeah, I'm just spending a few days here to catch up with her, spend some time with her, and yeah, so it's pretty cool. I managed to get a couple of trades in today as well. So I have been trading gold. Gold has been a very nice little monster recently. So yeah, we've got some really nice trades. This is a week that's going pretty well for me so far already. So yeah, I'm just taking it really slow. Aiming for about 350 to about $700 per day. Not forcing anything, just trying to aim anywhere from 2 to 5 trades per day. One of my objectives recently is to stay away from my daily loss limit. Not that that's been too much of a problem, but I did ask Mick to lower my daily loss limit from 3,000 to 1,500, and I'm just going to slowly chipping away at it, and it's working really nicely. I'm following my own rules, and yeah, it's good. I mean, I've been getting used to Topstep. It's a pretty cool platform. Obviously, we know that already. So yeah, pretty exciting. I did two pretty straightforward trades. I'm just going to move this somewhere.
Okay. Oh, you're putting it up here. We got some new highs in the S&Ps and the NASDAQ. Thank you, Andre.
Yep, nice one. Equities have been also shooting up. Yeah, crude oil is slowly kind of getting there. I'm still just in observation mode there because I have a couple of parameters that I like to stick to before I go back to trading something. And crude oil is not quite there yet. I still want to see it doing about 200 ticks on average per session before I go back to it. But gold has been really nice. It has this range of about 250 to 300 ticks, and then sometimes goes a little bit crazy and gives us like 450 ticks on the day, which is pretty cool. That means we have plenty of range to work with. So one of the first trades that I did was a test of the initial balance low. Now, I couldn't trade anything before that because I was on the plane. So when I got off the plane, I saw this sell-off. And then I saw that the market tested the initial balance, but never quite managed to close inside it. So my hypothesis there is to go with the previous trend, previous breakout from the initial balance. And that actually brought me a really nice 3-to-1 trade, which I took pretty much to the tick at the highs. And then I decided to do a little day range fill short. I like to call these day range fills because it sort of happens towards the end of the close, very close to settlement, where the market just kind of comes off the highs or the lows, depends on what we've had up until then. Didn't take all of this. I just took like a portion of it, and that brought me to the P&L on the day, which you can see here, which is $663. Trading micros. I wanna point that out. Yeah. So again, you don't need to trade massive size. It's just, higher risk reward doing its thing. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about finding those good opportunities and getting the chunk of the trend on the day. That's market stalking 101. And part of that is to not get close to your daily loss limit if the day starts going badly, because we won't always get days like these where I just pick 2 trades and they both work. That's actually an outlier for me. Usually I will, try one trade. It might lose a little bit. I will bail out early if I can, and then I will try to find a better opportunity. So today, pretty stress-free for me. Just a couple of trades, both of them worked. So yeah, it's a nice day. Yeah, I like days like these. I wish we could have every single day like this, but that's not quite the reality of trading.
That would be perfect. The thing is,
so
you got those trades. You built some confidence,
Yep.
but you didn't get greedy, which I love the
No.
management side of that.
Yep.
You took
Exactly.
the trades. Obviously you're on the plane. You got in. Market was a little later, but
Yeah.
are you looking for any positions right now? Anything that you see in
Not
gold? I
just
know that
yet.
we're
So gold has gone through settlement, and although it's still moving, this is not really the time of day where I continue to trade gold unless we have like massive ranges on the day and there's like still a lot of volume. But on my little volume indicator down here, I don't know whether you can see that. I don't know whether you can see my cursor. You can, just about. So you can see that the volume has actually fallen below some of the moving average. So for me, this is not quite enough to keep trading gold. I would need to see more volume if I was going to do another trade here. But in about an hour or so, I might have an ES trade, because that is the time of day when I do the last trade of the day, which is typically either a fade or kind of going with the trend depends on what the price is doing. So I will be looking for maybe one more ES trade, but again, I don't want to risk too much of this profit. So even if I do get involved, it's going to be a micro ES, probably about 3 or 4 micros, and then I'm only going to be risking about $160. So just working on preserving most of that profit on the day, and then if that trade doesn't work out, I'm just going to walk away. So that's the
right. Is
plan.
it you're
Um,
still going to be a 3-to-1 on that?
I don't know. They're usually about 1 to 1.5, maybe. So they're not
Okay.
the biggest trades. They're more kind of like Ellie style scalps, where the market kind of moves pretty quickly, and then I just take whatever is there, because we don't really have the time at that time of day to kind of sit on trades and wait for them to work out. So those will typically be quicker opportunities for me. It's all about how close are we to closing time, electronic close, and if there's no time to run the big trade, well, you just got to do a hit and run and grab whatever you can, right?
Grab whatever you can, hit and run. Yes,
Yeah.
that's been the story here lately. But we're the ES might give you a move here. I know that we've just topped
I'll
out
have a
here in
look.
the ES,
I'll have a look.
and taking a look at tilt. Right now, it's pretty much on the fence here. We've got gold 55% long. We got crude obviously slowing down a little bit. 53% long, 65% short. Nasdaq 57% short in the S&P 500, and those are on the tops here. So little
Yeah.
lean towards the sellers here, coming back here and seeing what they can do. But
Yeah, I
we've
think
got
I have a
our
level higher up in ES, so let me just
okay.
double check, because I did have a little quick look. Yeah, so we're still not at the average session range high. The average session range high is all the way up at 51.31 half. So
Wow.
until we get there, there could
It's a
actually
while.
be another move higher. Yeah, exactly. So we still haven't filled all the range for the session,
Really.
and we are sitting in sort of like a P-shaped formation on the profile. And P-shaped days, it does indicate some kind of short covering, so we wouldn't go against that, at least not if we are nowhere near a high probability level. But if we reach that average session low, that's where I might want to look for short. But in absence of that, we could have maybe a test of a lower time frame demand, and ideally I would like that to overlap the initial balance high. And then if we cannot accept back into that initial balance, that's another run for a long trade higher towards that average session range high. So that would be like my couple of hypotheses and some levels that I have. So what's that? Let's see what the price is. So
Yeah.
around
Dee, what's your time frame?
50.96 quarter. This is a 30-minute time frame. So I
Okay.
usually start on the daily chart, and then I like to look at the 4-hour chart, and then I focus on the profile mainly for the open sentiment and for any kind of date types relating to the extensions of that first hour of trading range. Today we have a one-sided extension, which again speaks more to the long side until we reach some more significant levels. I know there's a bit of a supply here on the 4-hour chart, but so far that's not being reactive. So I would expect to see some more buying if they're going to turn this around. it's going to be higher up, in my opinion. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, watching those two levels for the next 90 minutes or so, definitely into power hour and the close.
Deeyana, explain your process. Now, before you're putting a trade on, you're checking different time frames, different charts.
Yeah.
How does that work? Because the thing is, usually I'm just watching one throughout the day and just keeping an eye on that. What's the benefit of using different time frames and so forth?
To me, the benefit is first and foremost understanding where we are in the larger time frame structures. So for that purpose, I like to use supply and demand levels. So if we go up to the daily chart, we can see that there was some demand that was reactive here somewhere from 49.55 roughly. And then there was some buying wicks, and then we went to a bit of a flimsy reversal with that sell-off that we saw yesterday. I was actually on that short as well. Put it pretty much at the average session range high, the high probability level. And then now we have like a pretty aggressive long. And it's an extended candle. So, if we go even higher, then obviously there's like a timing in the market where at some point that trend can be exhausted. And if you continue buying at that point, you might get lucky. We might get even more of a squeeze into the close. But a lot of the times you will get some opportunity for shorts. So that's what the daily chart is telling me. So where are we when we look at the market structure, when we look at the actual sellers and buy areas? So sellers are all the way up here, right? That's where this sell move came from. And the buyers were, they're here, right? We can see that. This is where we're coming off from. We are kind of in the middle of the range, and that somewhat minimizes the probabilities of any particular direction, because on a larger time frame, we've got not a lot to lean on to go, oh, well, it's definitely going this way. But we know that we had that rejection. We know that we have a P-shaped day. And that kind of just gives me a bit more of a narrative to the day. So if I see something that matches that on lower time frames, on the day time frame, I will be inclined to give it more weight as the day goes on. So it's a multi-time frame analysis just to make sure you are aware of the chart location, and then you hunt for a trade location on a lower time frame. And for that, I like to go down to a 4-hour chart. This is the supply that I was talking about. But again, if you look at the market structure, we're still kind of in the middle of nowhere. This is not really an originating point of the proper sell area where this entire move came from. So that's very, very high up. But we do have these couple of speed bumps on the way before we get there, which could give us a little bit of a maybe that day range fill idea. So, you go up to the average session range high and then maybe a bit of a sell into the close. So that's the 4-hour chart. And from here on out, I go to the profile. So it's a different concept that gives me an entirely different piece of information. And today, like I said, we had the P-shaped profile, already said that. I can also see that we opened with a slight imbalance on the day, which means overnight inventory was long, but not too long. Usually that opens up a possibility for further upside. And I like to see that because those kind of days typically end in a one-sided auction. Again, not always, obviously, there are probabilities attached to that, but a lot of the times you can speculate that a one-sided auction is a pretty high probability. So 2 choices were already visible at the open. Either we go higher from that area and just keep shooting up, which is what ended up happening. This is an equity index after all. The other hypothesis was if we go down to accept the value area, it would be that special situation play that John and me like to talk about a lot. And in that case, we would have had a sell setup, so short setup, possibly to maybe do a dead cat bounce. I know Dolby doesn't like that that phrase, but it's basically a failed upside move. So you effectively get one day where the market goes into a reversal, but then the very next day that fails and it kind of takes out the low that was established on the previous days. So we don't have that today. We have a very nice clean move higher. So on the day time frame, I also like to include the average ranges. So I have my own twist on that only uses the regular trading hours rather than the entire 24 hours. And that's especially relevant on days when the market might exceed the daily range already for London or Asia because something comes in overnight. And then you don't want to be scratching your head going, well, now what? So over the years, I wanted a way to find another level where I could find my high probability trades. And I had this like big epiphany moment quite a number of years ago now, where I was like, well, how do I solve this? Like, obviously, average daily range or average true range, they are very similar measures. But once they're gone on the day, you're like, I don't have a level. What do I do now? And I was kind of thinking about that. And then at one point, I was like, well, if we're using profile, using regular trading hours, why not use the same thing? So get the range of the actual session trading hours over the last 10 days and see where that falls. And then over the next sort of few months, I kept tracking that to see whether that's a valid hypothesis and a valid idea. And lo and behold, those levels actually gave me some quite miraculous trades where people were going, how the hell did you know it was going to turn around there? So it's a very good way if you're somebody who likes to pick tops and bottoms, like I actually quite like doing that. But you need to do it systematically. You can't just go, oh, I think it's going to turn around. Obviously, we need some cause to call a short or a long, especially when you have a one-sided auction like today. So for me, average session high and average session low are the levels that I've used quite heavily over the years to do so. If you guys want to see what happened yesterday, I can try and use my little Blotic time machine here. Here we go.
If this we is only a trade had a that time I did. Machine.
Oh, we do. We do with, this is my Blotic DR indicator. Actually, most of my indicators that we coded up have this on-the-fly kind of a little backtest mode that shows you all the levels and average ranges as they were at the time, as long as you've got enough history. It doesn't erase the candles, but for me, it's just like a quick way to test the hypothesis to see whether a level worked yesterday or not. So if I show you the blue, I don't know how well you can see that on this screen, but there's like this little blue dashed area. So that was an average session range high from yesterday. And before those levels turn into dashes, they're little dots. So when the level is exhausted, that means, okay, now we monitor for a reversal. And if you see yesterday, pretty late in the day, I think this was during, I think it was during power hour, but it might have been a little bit earlier. Let me just see what time that was.
Yeah, yesterday's power hour really didn't move until the end of the day.
Yeah, so that's what this was. Yeah. So I frequently will do an ES trade within the last half hour and sometimes even the last 10 minutes as the MOC orders are going through. And like I said, they're not massive trades, but you get to do these sort of, catch these sort of trades very early. I know that the boys were kind of selling from 50.59, but I actually got in all the way at 50.69, I think was my entry, because I was also watching my book map and I had the average session range high there. So I was like, okay, well, if it's going to turn around, I should see signs of that. And sure enough, I did. And I ended up taking about 1.5 R. And I believe I used about I think it was a 6 handles for a stop loss. And I didn't take this whole move, but I did take, a pretty nice chunk out of it. And then it just died. It was the end of the session. So today I will be looking for something similar if we can get to the average session high, which is all the way up here. And like I said, if we don't get that, we have the alternative of initial balance high, slightly lower as a continuation of the move. But I would still like to see some sort of a pullback. So that would be my plan going into power hour today. And hopefully people are starting to kind of get the idea of the multi-time frame analysis. So it's not that I use the same concepts. I use probably about 3 or 4 different concepts that all give me slightly different pieces of information and allow me to stalk the market pretty efficiently on most days, as long as obviously we follow the plan and the times of day when these moves are expected to happen. So we talked about the final half hour, MOC imbalance for the last 10 minutes, those are the times of the day when I would expect to see these reversals intraday. So there's a time component in what I do that plays into all of this quite heavily.
Deeyana, thank you very much for breaking that down. You've mentioned that before, that you've got more than one process, like my lazy ass just watching one chart, but you're doing your homework the right way. Now, of course, we've also got our good friend Robert over there with a big smile on his face. Robert, how are you, buddy?
I am doing good, and Dee, always a pleasure to see you and hear you, and the nice little half-hour masterclass that we just got right there. Just thank you very much. Seriously, you would touch on a whole bunch of different topics, and it was funny because it's like a mind reading. You were talking about something, and I literally grabbed my notepad and I wrote some notes, and then you said it. I just like scratched it off, and I'm like, oh, well, I should ask her about, and I wrote that down, and then you cleared that up too. So that was about it. So things.
One of the things about me is that I used to I used to be like very briefly in my music career. I actually taught music, and one of the things that I found that I was very good at is explaining pretty difficult concepts and breaking them down so that everybody can understand it. And I think that sort of naturally seeped into my teaching trading, and I have used those kind of skills to just kind of break complex pieces of information in slightly smaller chunks so that people don't get confused. And I hope that at this point, after so many years, I can like break it down enough so that people can just about understand what is it that we're talking about here.
Real quick here. Go ahead. Real quick here. You mentioned music. Now, I know that you're in a different spot. We don't have that purple light or your pooches in the background.
Yeah.
What's that? Is that a record behind you on the wall?
Yeah, that's my dad's. So
your dad's. I knew he.
Yeah, so my dad was a huge music rock star in Yugoslavia. So from 1977 all the way from 1989. He was in a folk rock parody band. So there was sort of like a cross between comedy and music. And they were pretty innovative. They were very funny. So people obviously liked that. And during the course of their career, they sold 20 million records, which is a lot for the region of this region where we I don't even know whether we had 20 million people in the country. So obviously huge success. So that's one of his, I think that's a platinum record. There's another one in the corner over there. Sadly, we lost my dad a couple of years ago. But yeah, I mean, his memory lives on, and I still get his fans, every so often they hunt me down on Facebook and they're like, hey, Dee, I used to be a massive fan of your dad. So it's a little bit weird. But he was a very accomplished man. So yeah, and his spirit lives in this place. So it
still lives by all means, and in people's hearts, and definitely in their iPods or not the iPods.
Yeah, he's on YouTube as well. Like he hasn't actually been in the limelight since the 90s. But they have like still all of their videos and everything, but somebody obviously made a huge effort to bring it all into the digital era. And even young people, they know about the band. There's a huge part of the Yugoslavian tradition, even though it's no longer Yugoslavia. Obviously, we're now 6 different countries because we had the civil wars and stuff, which was very sad. But yeah, I mean, if something positive came out of my dad's career was that he unified everybody with music and comedy. So, I always liked watching his videos. I mean, he was a pretty funny guy in real life as well. So, yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And if you can, one of these days, share the link with us. I think we'd love to see that.
I will do.
And
someday, yeah.
someday. But speaking of backgrounds, Robert.
Yes,
you've got this. Tell us about this one. You've got. What do you got cooking? Can we get Robert's background here, James?
Yeah.
Let me kill my ugly mug here. Yeah. So
shut some grasshoppers there.
I see some. Crickets.
Dee, last time we were on, I was like, I always make these funky programs, funky backgrounds, and I literally just want to give like one high-level description to the AI and say, make a background. I said, hey, I'm on this streaming show called Market Stalking, and we're on with, if a person's tagline is be less of a grasshopper and then relate it to the markets. And that's literally what it came up with. So there you go. You got market stalking. We got the grasshoppers and trades and charts and everything else behind there. So yeah, so there you go. We'll see what happens on the next go round.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm hiding my props. You got to send that. You got to send that to Deeyana. I'm sure
I'll send it over to you.
Use it.
Yeah, we should do a poster. I'll put it on my wall.
We have to get it. Yeah, there you go. I'll send it. I get the last couple of them. I'll send over to you.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, Robert, we haven't talked to you in a little bit, but I'm glad that you're with us here today. And have you put any trades on today? You got anything cooking? I know that
I did.
When we were doing the house account, you had some really good insight. You had some really good advice. Plays were working. But did you do anything today?
I did. So, true to form here, when in the background on production all day, wearing, several different hats like everybody does. I just pulled up the practice account, and rather than jump in with live stuff, and this is what I've been doing. So the ones that are following me can follow along with this too. And I post them each day in Discord and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at for zones and targets before they happen. And then once we reach them, it shows here it is, and we can go to this one. And so far we did pretty good today. So I marked off some daily areas, some weekly areas, and we just blew right through them. I took the trade. These are minis. This is a 150K. Okay. It's the practice account, and I'm using minis. I'm doing 5 at a time. So I'll enter with 5, exit 5, or enter 5 more, exit 5, and so on and so forth. That's the plan. But I wanted to show what the stats looked like when I first started this. So I'm going to go right to the stats themselves. And there's our daily balance as it works. So we started over here on day 0 with 150K. We did a little bit. This was, I think I did just a little testing thing on micro, and I just started scaling them in like this. So we're currently at 153. And then if you look at the daily stats on it, there they are for every day if someone wants a screenshot or whatnot. This is a practice account, and it's only because I'm not trading the live accounts or combines while we're on production. But I can leave this under the screen and say, oh, I'm just waiting for a trade to come on, or waiting for a topic or Jack to come in with stats, or John or JD, and I'll just be like, oh wow, that's going to pop up over here, and I'll place a trade and I'll leave it. And that's what we're looking at right now. So I'm having a ball with it because it doesn't mean anything except getting used to these, the way these Rankos are running, and getting used to the larger size, because I'm generally not a huge size trader. So I am skilling myself up. So I'm going in with, instead of 1 or 2 contracts, we're going in with 5 to 10 and 15 hopefully pretty soon.
Right, trading the NASDAQ mini day for Deeyana, mini day for Robert. Robert, you've been trading those minis there for a while here. And let me ask you, Robert.
Yes.
Is it, I don't want to say easier, but is it more controlled? Obviously, with risk and reward is much different, but trading minis versus the micros.
In my opinion, this is for me, micros is always easier because, especially with NQ, my term was, they don't tear your face off. You get into a trade, you want to get into a little bit, and next thing you know, you're 15 seconds later, you're down $1,000. I don't like that feeling. I'm very risk averse. Yeah. So I don't have any problem with throwing on micro contracts, especially NQ during the US market. Nothing at all. So now that we have Topstep X with the ratio, right? 1 mini is 10 micros. And so if you can trade 5 minis, you can trade 50 micros, and you can scale them in and out. I do like that. At the same time, I've been doing that and been used to that, especially with my own accounts. I'm getting used to the larger size. So I'm trading between 5 and 10 at a time over here on this practice account. But on my other practice account, I have site over here, it's Trading View, just using paper trading. I'm actually trading 20 and 25 and 30 contracts at a time, just getting ramped up, because I've never done that, and you need to get your brain ready for it and get wired for it and get used to seeing those numbers. If you're used to seeing a couple hundred here and there on a mini or two, and now you're trading 25, it's just a whole other ballgame. You just have to get really used to seeing that. You practice.
There's definitely.
You don't go to a baseball game and keep practicing left-handed, and then go to the game and bat righty. Get used to it. Get used to bringing trains.
There's definitely an adjustment. Like I got pushed into into size in one of the prop firms, and it was scary when I did it. The first time you go from, like you say, in my personal account, I think the most that I traded up until that point was like 3 or 4 contracts. And then suddenly they're like, no, you've got to do like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 120. And I was doing crude oil, so it's not that easy to scale into crude oil when it's a thin market. You don't have that many contracts per price, so it just opens your eyes to a slightly different way of approaching your maximum size. And this year, I've actually gone down to smaller sizes because obviously this is a new account. And to me, it's very much related to what the balance is. So whatever the balance is, I like to scale down the position size to reflect that. And at this point, to me, it doesn't really matter all that much what size I'm trading. It's all about the ticks. But clearly, once you start getting into some size, you have to start thinking about the liquidity pool. It's like when you're trading with proper size, you can't just go into a breakout trade because you're going to get a bad fill. You're not going to get all of the position in all at once. And then suddenly you have to start like scaling in. And you're like, well, what's going on? It's a complete sort of, I was going to say it's mind, but obviously we're trying to keep it PG here. Mind F.
It's just changing.
Yeah, it takes a while. Yeah. And it's why I prefer to look at ticks over actual numbers because it messes with your head.
That's it. That's key.
It messes with your head.
To keep people in. And it's hard to do. I mean, obviously we're trading money here and we love to see the money rise. But if you're looking at ticks and you're looking at wins, how many wins do I got? How many ticks did I make? And that's one thing on the trading floor. Nobody ever said, hey, I'm up $2,700. No, they would always say ticks. I'm up 47 ticks.
Ticks are scalable. Like, somebody can say, oh, I made 50 grand. It's like, yeah, but the question in the prop firm that I worked on, actually every prop firm that I've been in, it was like, yeah, but how did you get, like, how many ticks did you get out of it? And it was all about the risk reward. They weren't really interested in like how much money you made. They were like, well, did you use proper risk reward? How much did you risk in order to get that? And, if you only managed to grab, I don't know, like 50 ticks for the whole day when, you made money, obviously, but they're like, but the market moved 250 ticks. It's like, what were you doing for the rest of it? It's like, but I made money. It's like, we don't care. It's like your risk reward also wasn't good. You only took 1-to-1. Like you should have taken more, or you should have. So it sort of opened my eyes to looking at things through a numbers point of view. So I don't know whether people remember, but Ben, one of the risk managers, in January or February, he was talking about how I have like a very low variance to my P&L. So when I am doing really well, there isn't too much drawdown there. Obviously, there will be bad days, but then mostly it's a pretty smooth curve upwards. And that's something that I worked very hard on. And it was a huge challenge because you have to almost find like that fine balance between risk reward that is just enough and enough drawdown not to hurt you, but then just to let like medium accuracy and medium risk reward work in your favor over time. So time is always the biggest decider of the how well the system is doing. And I'm gonna say I think it was a little bit unfair on Dakota to rip him to shreds just because he's like in a new live account. We know that he's got a crazy high risk reward. The live account is new. He's scaling up. So we're kind of taking a very, very small, isolated sample size and then kind of judging him, oh, he's only got 129. It's like, well, no, he actually can bank a lot of cash, but just let's give him a chance. Let's get that time component to play out, and then we can look at the numbers in the live maybe in a month or two, and the sample size is bigger. And that's kind of how I learn how to do my stuff. It doesn't matter what happens in one trade or one day, for that matter, even 1 week, right? But if you're consistent, over time, the system and the numbers will come true and it will start to manifest. I know Rob used to be known as the stats guy before we went into that. I remember that,
yes. I still am. We just gets boring on air, so I do it all behind the scenes.
No, I loved it.
Riz
I loved
Cooney.
it. I'm gonna say that was my favorite segment. I was like, yeah, he's the stats guy. You know, now I get to talk to you. It's great.
You know, one thing. Let me say though, the reason that Dakota was put on the block, number one is, and I think this is the only reason, he's a Packer fan. Right. So
I knew
yes, he's a Packer fan, and he will always be. No, he's a great guy. And another thing I wanted to talk about too is, you know, we were mentioning ticks versus the monetary verbiage, and the only time on the trading floor where you actually heard monetary was if you had an out trade. You come in the next day, hey, we're down $5,700. You know, or when you were in the pit filling for the retail houses and you had an error, they would always come and say, hey, you got to write us a check for $1,600 or whatever. But like otherwise, I think it's very wise. It's so hard not to do. And one time I was, you know, walking past in the office, and Michael Patak was trading, and he had that Post-it note on his monitor. And I walked past. I came back again. I'm like, oh, you got that Post-it note on there. He goes, I'm avoiding my P&L. I'm not watching my P&L. I'm watching my wins. I was like, wow, I never thought of that, you know. And if that can help,
ticks, risk reward. So that's it. Like, am I getting 0.5 R? Am I getting 1 R? And I'm gonna say I got a little bit lost with you know, all the pressure that we had on, you know, on TopstepTV, and I started changing the way I trade to kind of try and make myself more exciting, because, you know, I'm not a very exciting trader. You know, I have the times of day when I expect certain trades. A lot of the times I sit on my hands. There's a lot of waiting around, and then people are like, yeah, you know, you need to trade more. I'm like, let's give it a go. And then it was just like, you know, it's not the way I trade. And now I've made conscious executive decisions to just stick to my guns. You know, you can not enjoy my trading because it's not super exciting, but it is what I do, right? I'm not a very high frequency trader. I typically do anywhere from like 2, 3, maybe 5 trades in a day. If I go over that, it's usually because it's either the range bound day and I keep trying to find momentum trades. So it's kind of like a trigger for me to go, hey, well, what's happening here? I need to step back. And just to go into that review of the plan that I've made for the day in light of new market generated information. And it's just, you know, it's been really nice to just get back to my kind of trader homeostasis. So even if I don't, you know, take profits on air, I'm now deciding that that's not a big deal. You know, I find a trade. Right. You guys saw me do the short gold trade. I actually held that probably for another hour or so after I went off air. And it actually got me almost 3R on the day on Monday. So I'm actually having a pretty good week already. I think I'm up like $1.5 grand already. So I'm gonna keep that going. That is now, you know, the primary objective, to keep that profit. So I don't even need to trade all that much for the rest of the week. I know we've got earnings season, so that's bound to put a bit of wrench in the works. But yeah, it's kind of nice to follow your plan and to get addicted to the process rather than what other people are kind of expecting from you. It's not always easy because we all want, you know, profits and we want them now, but, you know, it's trading, so we have to rein in that side of us.
Give it a try. Give it a try and see if that, you know, helps you throughout the day, even if it's a little help. Any help at all to get yourself moving forward is awesome. Now, Robert's got a question for you, but I wanted to ask you, are you going to be trading into Power Hour?
If the market sets up, then yes, obviously. So if we either reach the initial balance low and then reject, or if we get to that average session range high, much higher up, I might trade ES. But if we don't get those levels, I'm done for the day. So I will be watching it, obviously, but if my levels don't come in, I'm done.
This? We're getting some over the wire here. could you ask Deeyana if she would like to stay for what? Stay. Come on, finish. There it is. Stay for Power Hour. Let me ask.
I mean, I can stay.
Oh.
Yes, I can stay.
Oh, no.
Come on, let's
No?
get some likes in here. If you want Deeyana to stay for Power Hour, let's get some likes. Don't forget to subscribe. Well, let me answer back. Yes, she will stay because she loves us. Okay.
Oh, yes. I love you, of course.
Good. Well, the problem with that whole thing, Eddie, is well, first of all, thanks for Deeyana for staying, but I do know Morse code, and that wasn't the first message. The first one was, Eddie, you got to be quiet. That's what came through. No.
All right, hold on a second. This is coming back again. It's like, Robert, please shush. Wow, the Morse code shush. That was pretty good. All right. Robert,
just you wait. It's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be one of those Power Hours where my levels don't come in, and I'm just like sitting here like a pretty face and just going, yes, okay.
You get good to go. Good to go.
Welcome to my world. That's pretty much how it happens. Deeyana, I got a question for you. One of the things I wrote down, you said, not like that. You're traveling. That you said coming in here. Now, when you travel, and you did take some trades today, which means you must have something in front of you. Is it the same system? Do you just carry a laptop around everywhere you go? Because then you have side screens too, right?
Yeah. So
what's your setup like at home versus now?
Yes. So my setup at home is 4 big monitors, right? They're like, I think they're about 24-inch. So I have Bookmap on one. I have on the right-hand side, I have a couple of charts there that I might not be looking at actively. Then I have my main screen where, I usually share it with everybody. And then on the left side, I typically have anything relating to the show. I have some browser windows, like a million browser windows actually. And I do have some Ninja Trader charts there where I watch Renko because I quite like the way they've done their Renko. It's kind of very real time. You can also get this free indicator called Ninja Renko. It's not mine, it's just out there. And it has wicks. So I find that it's very malleable to what I want to see from a Renko chart. And it just helps me to keep a pulse on the movement. So all of that is kind of like, obviously quite a lot of detail. Now, when I'm traveling, I typically have a little extra screen that is a part of my laptop. Right now, I have, what is this? This is Asus ZenBook 13-inch. So it's a pretty small screen. And then I have one of those additional screens that you kind of hook up on the side. So that's already 2. And then I actually like to nick my mom's big screen that she usually uses on her desktop computer. So that's the 3rd screen. So I have a pretty good setup of 3 screens here. I could probably make it work on 2 if I'm not like on air. So if I don't need to like track what's going on with the show and stuff. So that's usually my setup when I'm traveling. So if I'm sitting in a lounge and not really, doing much, I have like a couple of hours to kill. I will open it up and I will see what's happening if I can get a trade in before the flight. If not, that's fine as well. But that's my little travel setup. So right now I have also, when it comes to cameras and microphones, I don't have any extras here. I literally just have the laptop webcam with its own microphone, which is actually pretty decent. Like, it's not the best, but it does its job. And then I have a little LED light that I like to put on just to kind of make the scene look better.
Atmosphere,
so
man,
that I don't scare little children.
You don't scare little children. Come on.
Oh, yeah, you haven't seen me in the morning.
Yes, I have. You've been here for past markets. Well, then
that's
again,
right.
that's
well,
not.
It's not my morning. Yeah, it's not my
your
morning.
Your morning is. Yeah, it's a different.
No,
time.
I've been online with no makeup on, so yeah, it's I'm not.
Neither have I. Robert, you use makeup at all? No, not at all. A little eyeliner, maybe.
Nope, nothing whatsoever.
No rouge.
I know. Hogue has done guyliner before. Not on TopstepTV, but I know he's done it.
Alice Cooper eyeliner, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I've done eyeliner. Is that what you say?
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You have?
How do you know this?
Go ahead. Let us know, Robert.
No. Hogue. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know. I'm like, I haven't.
I know what this is. No, Hogue did. Actually, So I think when he was a musician, they did I don't know, some rock nights or something, and I think he said he wore an eyeliner a couple times. Yeah. I think it's a cool look on the guy, actually.
I got to admit, too, I was in a band, and it was a girl's idea. We were like a Duran Duran band.
It always
we had this spiked hair. I was called Electric Head. In spiked hair using the heavy hairspray. And yes.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think? You want to take a short here? I want to jump in the market. You guys want to take a short here?
Jump in, man.
NQ short?
You can jump in. Yeah, for me, my ES levels are not here. I'm focusing on ES. That is the market that I've traded.
Okay, I'm going to go into one lot. I'm going to take this. This is on the 100. Thanks. The 150K
look at it move.
practice. Yep, I'm going to take a one lot selling, and I'm not going to have my risk at $1,000 because I was up 900. So my risk, I'm only going to take some of that. So if it goes against me right away, I will just get the heck out of it. So I'm willing to risk some of my profits, and then we're going to move our target up. And if it starts popping into a little bit more profit, I'll just close the trade out, see if we can get another 50, 60 bucks. Looks like it's not going my way to start with.
Yes, and NASDAQ tilt 70% short.
So talk us through this, Rob. What's the reason for taking the trade? I know you're very good at explaining.
Sure. I'm bored, for one, and two. It has been pushing up into this weekly target area. If somebody wants to call it the demand area or supply, whatever. I don't trade that way, but it was up there. It was hanging around waiting. I just glanced over to my other chart, which has range bars on it, which I kind of like better. And it looked like they were stacking up, looking like it was going to just hang around, and either push back up or drop. I don't want to give all the profits away, so I'll actually bring this a little closer. I'm willing to risk a couple $100 on this for the simple fact that if it goes up and makes a new high, I'll get stopped out. But if it continues down and I see a couple $100, I'll just close the trade out. And that's really my only plan at this point in time. We'll see what happens.
Yep. Great.
And it's on the practice, so I'm willing to risk a couple $100 on this, or 10 or 15 points on it. No big deal.
Yeah, and that's also something very important in regards to budgeting and saving your profits. I caught the end of Brett talking about, was it Nathan, the guy that did like 50K and then ended up minus 10K? Is that what happened? I couldn't watch the whole thing. So yeah. So that's not being aware of the budget, and you do see that a lot when people get overexcited with the profits that they've made on the day and then just decide to tank the whole thing. It's like, even through all of my drawdown periods that obviously we all have drawdown periods, I've learned not to do that. Like, if the day is bad, the day is just bad. But if I'm already up over 1 or 2 R on the day, or even more, then I want to save that. I don't think that I have many days where I give it back. In fact, I remember one day, I think it was the last live stream that I did like a couple of years ago, where I had like a back issue. I wasn't really fully like healthy and stuff. And then I made a couple of grand, and then I just continued to trade. And before I knew it, because I was talking and stuff, I actually ended up giving it all back. And I was like, oh, that was stupid. So I don't do it very, like I said, it was like a couple of years since that happened. But unless I'm sick, and again, don't trade when you're sick or not feeling well or you haven't slept well. Right. That's probably not the best thing to do, because you're going to make bad decisions, and nobody is immune from that. No one, no matter how long you've been trading. If you don't feel right, you just don't make good decisions. Like, it's as simple as that. So we want to try and keep those profits. When Mick goes calling, and you've had a big day, it's because they want you to lock that profit up. Don't give it back. It's like, it's heartbreaking. It's like, for all of us who've been in this game for so long, it absolutely breaks our heart to see somebody who was up 50K on the day to then end up not giving all of it back, and then like just going and just don't do that. That's pure emotions talking. This is why we need to move away from monetary values. If you are up on the day and you're massively up on the day, just lock it up, man. Just lock it up.
That's why I was just willing to risk it, to go and like see. It was hanging around there for quite a while. Again, I was looking off to this of the charts. Looks like it's going to stick here for a little bit. So I didn't know, and I don't. I am absolutely horrible, terrible, probably the worst ever. That's going to say, yeah, the market's going to keep. It's going up. I'm long biased. I'm sure. I'm absolutely horrible at that. What I'm really good at is to say, hey, if the market does this and then that, it usually does the third thing. And that's kind of like my strength. That's my forte. That's where these target areas.
So you're conditional logic, dude.
Yeah, that's just it. So what was happening is the market pushed up. NQ was like 617, 609, and it was hanging around here 650-ish. So we get a 40 handle area in there, but it was hanging around the last 10 or 15, waiting, because they're Renko. It's not going to plot a bar every minute. It has to move. So as soon as I started to see the colors drop, coming in the other direction and it's stamping in, I was like, okay, we at least have a push down of maybe 10 or 15 points. I'll risk 10 the other way. I'm not going to give my whole $911 back. And I just closed out at a $50 profit, little slippage in there. Nice. And that's going to be hands off the rest of the day. And I'm not even going to lock it. It's a practice account.
There you go.
See, I'm kind of almost the opposite, because I'm very good at holding trades for a couple of hours. That is where my strength lies. But at the same time, if the momentum starts to wane or something is not really quite lining up with the time of day that I expect things to happen, I will close it earlier. Other than that, if I'm sitting on a trade that's just going in my direction, I've always been good at just letting it play out. So I'm almost like the opposite to you, Robert. And I think it's so beautiful to see like all of these different styles, how we can all make it work. So I would call myself more like an intraday swing trader. And I come from proper swing trading where that was the first 5 years of my career when I was just an independent trader before I went into prop. I literally held trades for like 2 weeks, sometimes even like a month at a time. And then when I went into intraday, obviously it's a different ball game. So I modified things around. It took me a number of years to actually become consistent with that approach. Because it's so sensitive to any inconsistencies intraday. So whatever you're doing, any little change is another parameter. And once I started looking at it from like almost like a coding point of view, every time you change the time of day when you enter a trade, every time you change the stop loss size, every time you change the duration of your trade, that's all like additional parameters. So you're constantly adding in variables, and then people are like, why am I not consistent? Well, I don't know. Maybe because you're varying about a million things all at once. How about we kind of like lock it down, start with one idea, one stop loss size, one target, one time of day, and then see how you get on. And that's your starting point. And you journal, and you carry on modifying things as you go along. It won't happen overnight. It won't happen in 1 week. It probably won't even happen in 3 months. But this is, a game with no end point. And that's what we have to strive for. And that's hopefully what I'm here to do, as somebody who is usually very consistent, with very low variance to my P&L. And I just tell everybody, just stop varying a million things all at once,
Great.
Good advice.
Right.
Way to go.
Dee, Robert, and all you lovely people in the chat. We're having Dee here for Power Hour.
Awesome.
Yes, it is. Very awesome. And don't forget tonight, 8 o'clock here, we'll have Slow Markets with Dakota. 7 o'clock, Coach Vince, Bar Charts. Coach Ray at 6 p.m. These are all central. And right after we close this after Power Hour, Coach Jay, Coach Paul at the buzzer. We're going to take a couple seconds. We need makeup. We need some more makeup here. And we'll be back with Power Hour. And boy, this is going to be a good one. Dee's going to stay with us. And we've got Andre, Dolby, Hogue, Dee, and many, many more. Be right back.